Thank you. I'd like to call this meeting of the Maple Run Unified School District Board of Directors to order at 6:01 p.m. Today is Wednesday, June 17th, 2020, and we are meeting electronically. We have 10 board members present representing 9 votes. The first item is the agenda review, and I would like to make a change to the agenda. I have a humanities grant for city school that I wanted to add to the consent agenda, you know, where grants normally go for us to approve. So if I could get a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Thank you, Al. Can I get a second?
Second.
Who was that, Jack?
I think it was Steve.
Oh, Steve, thank you. If I'm looking at my paper, I can't see anybody. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. 9-0. Okay, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Welcome. It's a beautiful night. Do we have any visitors? Can you see anybody, Jason?
I do not see any visitors this evening. I see staff and board members.
Okay, thank you. So item 5 is the consent agenda. We have the minutes of June 3rd and a humanities grant for city school. Does anybody want to move either of these items from the consent agenda for discussion? If I don't hear any objections, the consent agenda will be adopted. Hearing none, the consent agenda is adopted. Item 6, old business. 6A, COVID update. Kevin.
Hi, everybody. It is a beautiful evening. I think we all want to be where Nina is. Or is that background?
No, it's my deck.
So I guess you're inviting us.
At any time. Now that the rules have changed, sure.
So as you well know, we're almost to the end of the school year. Today was our last day for support staff, and tomorrow is our last day for teachers. And then it's onward to our next destination, which I'll get into towards the end of this presentation. A few things I just want to go over around indirectly or directly around COVID. One thing is our food service. There were some questions last time about what was happening with food service over the summer, and we didn't have good information from the feds yet on what we could do. We now do, and I think I'll throw that over to Joan, who has, she and Stacy have really run this and facilitated this right from the beginning. So Joan, would you like to talk about it?
Sure. We're going to go through June 29th with the current system that we have delivering with buses. Starting on July 6th, we're going to take off the rest of that week once we've delivered that Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is not going to be any type of food service. And then July 6th, we're going to go into a new mode where we're going to be delivering a breakfast and lunch each day, but they're only going to be delivered to pickup sites. So there will be pickup sites at all of the schools in the city. We just, about a week ago, got approval to have a pickup site at Fairfield. And then for the city, we're going to be actually putting some more pickup sites within the city. A lot of our families don't have cars, so we want to make sure that there's a pickup site in walking distance to every student that needs the food. So it'll be a breakfast and a lunch, and it'll work a lot like it's worked so far. The child does not have to be there. The parent can say, I need to pick up 5, and they will get food for 5 children. No one has to stay there to eat. So all of the regulation that was dropped for us to do what we've done so far will remain dropped over the summer, which gives us the flexibility to make this happen.
Thank you. That lack of regulation or lessening the regulation has been a huge boon for us right from the beginning to allow us to do what we've been doing. Amazing what happens when you let people actually go with it and be able to work with it. In the summer, actually, the lack of regulation is helping us. We've never been able to service Fairfield because we were never getting any sort of reimbursement for that. And this year, because of the way they've written it, we can do that, which is nice that we can do the whole district in some way. So I look at Sean here, but well, there you are. Sean, did you have something you were saying? I'm not.
No, it's just fantastic that we're able to do to be a pickup site. I want to thank Joan for making that happen. That's amazing. We've got volunteers to cover the whole summer, so that's great.
Yeah. The second thing I want to talk about is just what was a highlight to me, and I think to a lot of the community, is around our graduations. At one point, we never really knew what we could do with graduations. We had issues around how could we do this and still show the respect for our graduates, and to be able to make sure something was motivating, was positive, and with the whole school community involved, we had that over the last couple of weeks. And it's very interesting because every graduation was a little different. It was a little out of the box, creative, but all of them were cool in their own ways. And all of them put the student first. And I think it was a real highlight. I know one of the comments I got quite a bit was that people were pleased with the personalization of the graduations, which in some ways, ironically, was more positive than in years past, because we actually did things individually with kids and did things special for them. And that was seen. So once, kudos to everybody who were involved in it. The high school one, I think they were all special. The high school one, I just have to mention the fact that being done over 3 days, all the work that the administration and teachers put into it, the number
We had
of...
to wear the same clothes for 3 days too.
I'm sorry?
We had to wear the same clothes for 3 days too.
Yes, that's not the time to stay next to Jeff for 3 days. But the work that put into that, and again, the personalization that came from it, and the faculty and staff and administration, I thought was top notch too. So Bill and Sarah and Heather, nice job on that too, as well as with the elementaries. Any questions so far before we move on?
I think Sue has a question.
Susan?
Yeah, so it's more about, back to the food. Why is it that Fairfield never had a food site in the summertime but prior to this?
Martha, do you want to handle that, or?
Sure. The reason that Fairfield wasn't eligible before is because the free and reduced population wasn't high enough to qualify.
Alrighty. And then my other question is, is this funded through COVID, or this is federally funded the same way it is every summer through the federal funds?
This is funded the same way it would normally be funded, which is through federal and some state reimbursement funds.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see any other questions, Kevin, so.
So now we move ahead, and we look to the summer and we look to next year. Summer-wise, we're doing some minimal summer classes in the schools. Mainly it's City, who's doing somewhat of a pilot program with some of our students. Certainly not as many as we would normally do in the summer year, but it's certainly a start. And hopefully we will learn something from how that goes. The big thing we're looking at right now and waiting for is guidance from the state. Some of that came out. I just received it about an hour ago and sent it to the leadership from the Agency of Education. And that's mainly around what we're going to be expected to do around health and safety in the new year. I can't speak about it right now because I have not had a chance to read it, but it's the beginning of some of the information we'll get. We've been promised by Friday to get more information about what they're planning on doing for the new year. My guess is when we get away from the health and safety aspect, much of the guidance is going to be relatively flexible and allow school districts to do what they can within the parameters of what they can possibly do to ensure safety for all teachers and students. But we'll see, and we'll have better information for you in July on that. We're not waiting for that information to at least start a process, because we've really only got 6-7 weeks to get things in place. So we have a reentry committee of 7 administrators who are going to have already started the discussion around what things might look like, what are going to be the priorities we look at, and most importantly, they're going to look at subcommittees that will be necessary, because you can't have everybody do everything. So have subcommittees of staff members, of teachers and administrators work on specific areas that we know are going to be big issues. Now, they haven't finished that yet, but I do have a PowerPoint that they presented and that I want you to see. We'll talk through that PowerPoint a little bit, and I'll tag team with the 7 administrators. Just for you to know, the 7 administrators that volunteered to do that, hopefully I will catch them all here on the cubes here, but it's Angela, Lisa, Sean, Joan, Alexis, Sarah. Did I miss anyone?
Andrea.
Andrea. I don't see her picture. Andrea. And they're going to start the process, and they're the ones that did this PowerPoint presentation that we're going to briefly go over. But I will put the caveat out there that it's just the beginning. It's a draft. It's something we're looking at as the beginning of moving forward along with the guidance that's coming. Brenda, could you put that up? And team, if you could just help, I'm going to start it, but if you can just help tag team with me on things that I might forget, or you could add to things. So this is all on what we know at this point, which isn't much, but it's certainly a start for next year. And really what we knew as of June 11th when the presentation was done. Next. This is just an overview of what we've done so far, which you all know about. What we've tried to do up to this point. And the final bullet is now we have the opportunity to design something that's hopefully more flexible and that puts learning on equal footing with engagement of the kids. And we have a little time. We're not going to have 3 days to figure it out. We're going to have a little bit more time to work on that, given the guidance we get. Next. So this is just a chart to show our priorities and what we think the critical elements are as we move forward with whatever plan comes out of it. And the overarching areas are district alignment, so we're all consistent throughout the district, collaboration with our stakeholders, equity, which has been one of our most difficult things through all of this, and it has been everywhere, and communication. And then those four major areas that we need to make sure we're hitting when the students come back, and starting from the foundation, the bottom, the committee feels health and safety is the #1 issue. And as you go up the triangle, emotional learning, social learning, we're going to have to redo some of that over the time period that this has been happening. And finally, academics. So it's just the broad areas that we're going to be looking at as we move forward.
Kevin?
Yes, John.
One of the things that I think became very clear in our professional development with Joelle Van Lent this week, and I'm pretty sure that they touched on it at all the schools, is just how our focus is really going to be on that social and emotional learning very, very heavily at the beginning of school, much more so than academics even. And then over time, it's going to shift. So I do believe that we're going to need to get our parents to understand that it's not going to be super academic heavy at first, because children have been out of our buildings for 6 months. They've forgotten how to function in a school in a lot of ways, and we have to bring them back. And we have to do that in a way that sort of recognizes what they've been through and honors that. So social and emotional learning are definitely going to be a major focus in the beginning.
Thank you.
Can I just pop in and say, I think the communication to parents is gonna be so important, because not that I have any children left in the school system, but academics has always been the #1 priority for my children. And I understand that's not, I understand we're different than some, but I think communication is going to be critical, especially at the high school level, especially for the students that are looking towards, college and advanced placement classes. In terms of getting that out there is quickly and time and again getting it out there.
That's why I wanted to mention it now, because I want you guys as the school board to know this well in advance, even before we've had a chance to communicate with parents, just so that you know where we're going to be coming from to make sure that we're getting our kids in the right spot to be able to learn. I just thought that was important to bring up at this point.
Sean, can I just say I couldn't agree with you more. And again, getting that kind of information out as soon as you possibly can, I just think it's probably going to be really important.
And administrators understand, because this is up, I don't see you, so feel free to do what Sean did and jump right in if you have other things to mention on any of the slides.
Can I just respond, Kevin, to, I know I'm not part of the group, but today at BFA, the staff really agreed and seconded what Sean said about making those social connections with kids first. So I just wanted to respond directly to Susan, because she was concerned about the high school. So
thank you, Bill.
We'll communicate that.
And I might add, as the chart is created, that's the reason I believe everybody put health and safety down at the bottom and as the foundation, because the feeling is, while academics are extremely important, you're not going to get to the academics if you don't have the social, emotional, and the health and safety in place. And then you can build on that. Next slide. I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but would somebody like to take over and talk this slide out? Angela?
Kevin, I can speak to it. these were the three scenarios that we were hearing about that we would need to be prepared for. Obviously, the remote learning is what we're in now, and we've used some of our in-service time to really go in and make some modifications and some consistency to that if it is needed in fall at some point next year. So we're ready. The other scenario was modified on campus. So, meaning, and it's similar to what I think we're going to see in some of the guidance is, we're opening, but we've got to follow all kinds of important health and safety measures. And then the last one was the hybrid blended. And this is really an approach where you would have in-person learning at the same time. You may have students participating in remote learning. And so these are the different areas that we really have to kind of wrap our heads around and get ready for. And I know that we talked about it at leadership earlier this week, and we will be sending out another parent survey at some point here to really ask some questions about what their comfort level is, and if there are families that would prefer to have their children attend school in a remote fashion for a certain period of time while we do bring other children back. So we just really want to be flexible with that and able to be prepared for any one of these scenarios, and also be able to move from one to the other fairly easily in case of the need arises. So that's what the scenarios are, the overarching kind of overview of what they are.
And what we've been told, you see that whole pivot section on the right that Angela was talking about, what we've been told from above is that we definitely need to be prepared for all three on a moment's notice. We might get told at any point that we have for instance, a Winooski situation, which came up, had a hot spot, and we might have to go from having kids in school mostly to everybody going back to remote learning. And while that's going to be tough, other people will be making that decision, and we just need to be ready for it. Okay, let's move to the next slide. So
here if you want.
Great. Okay, John.
So we also wanted what we wanted this slideshow for was so that all the teachers throughout the district were hearing a consistent message from their administrators. So we really wanted to document the agreements we've come up with so far. And one of those was that we're going to use a learning management system next year to support learning. And the reason why we're going to do that is because it's going to be one of the key elements to allow us to constantly be able to pivot from any one of the modes we have to operate in. And for pre-K to first, second, or third grade, depending on what school you are in, because it isn't consistent, we're trying to make it so no teacher has to know 2 LMSs. So we've looked at what our school configurations are. They're going to use something called Seesaw, which is really designed for younger children. And then from whatever that ends up through high school, we're going to be using Google Classroom. So that's going to be the way that we're going to run throughout the district, so we have consistency. And this is going to allow us to be able to pivot, and also it's going to set us up so that if there is someone who really wants to learn remotely only, then everything that's being taught in school is also available through the LMS, so it would be available remotely for those families.
Thank you, John.
And I would just add to that in Google Classroom, it's really a very configurable product. It can look a lot of different ways. And so each of the schools, and actually it was really the high school that gave me what I'm using, and I think Jason as well, kind of going off of that, have come up with some agreements for how the classroom should be set up, where assignments should be posted, how they might look when they're posted, so that sort of consistently from classroom to classroom you're going to have a similar experience within Google Classroom. That should help students and parents with navigating the systems.
Okay, thank you. Next slide. So again,
one of the things,
go ahead, Sean.
I was just going to jump on it. One of the things that we know is that, especially with the younger kids, we're going to have to teach them explicitly how to use these learning management systems, how to navigate within Google Classroom and Seesaw, how to do their assignments, how to hand them in, all those different things. We want to spend time right at the beginning of the year making sure that they all can function within the system, so that if we do have to pivot on a moment's notice, we're not spending sort of weeks trying to help explain to them how to get at their assignments. That's just a lesson learned.
Yes. Thanks. And was there one more slide, or was that it?
Two more.
Yeah, okay. So I talked to you earlier about the fact that we were looking at then creating subcommittees that will, of people, staff members and administrators who will work on the specific areas. So not everyone is, everyone is sharing the load. And while these may not be the only ones, these are 5 major things that we will be looking at that will probably be subcommittees. One being safety and health environments. That's what came out today, the guidance, which I will, if I didn't say it already, it looks quite complex, and it's going to take some time to sift through it. Number 2 is leadership policy and funding. So do we need to change any policies, procedures, budgeting strategies, communication strategies? A third area is maintenance of operation. So strategies designed to make sure we can keep the schools open for in-person instruction, cleaning, all of that. Fourth would be the continuity of learning, which we've talked about a little bit, improving the ability to provide remote learning, as well as in-person instruction. And 5 being SEL, social emotional health. And again, that was part of the triangle. We may have more after the committee looks at it, but this is where we're going to be starting. And this is actually some information that came out from the AOE. Next.
And I just wanted to point out that Joanna asked a question about if we were going to train parents, guardians, childcare centers and stuff like that, and how to use the platforms as well. And the answer was yes.
I have a quick question too, Jeff.
Yep, Grant.
Sorry to take us back, but maybe Sean, could you comment on how we chose Google Classroom? Especially for the high school. It's my understanding it's a pretty simple platform, and there's others out there that have a lot more, benefits maybe in terms of structure and linking up different, plans that, they might be gated, that sort of thing. Was there like a big list with some pros, cons? What else was considered?
That's a great question. And I think in my school, it was a matter of, we had a certain number of teachers who knew how to use the product. And so we were like, yes, let's go, because the other one we had access to was terrible. Now the high school did much more work on this. So I think someone from the high school will be able to address this much more effectively.
I can take it, Sean, and then maybe Sarah can jump in. We've at the high school for the past 3 years, we've gone through 3 different learning management systems. There isn't one, Grant, that does everything you want. There just isn't. I've probably worked in 4 or 5 different learning management systems in the past 10 years. And Google Classroom is one that, while it's simplistic, it is very easy to get the staff trained on and get it up and running. There isn't one that we use PowerSchool as our SIS, and there isn't one that links in with PowerSchool except for its own unified classroom. And the reviews we got back from our students, when they saw either one, they said, go with Google Classroom. It was hands down. It wasn't even close. And they had been trained all year trying to use unified classroom. So we really listened to our students. I've had experience in Schoology and product, which is more of a grading one, which is called Jump Rope, Infinite Classroom. They all have their good parts and they all have their bad parts. The big piece that's always to consider is the training of the staff. And the ramp up was what matters. And when we talk to Vermont Virtual Learning Collaborative, VTVLC, or other online, and Vermont Virtual Learning Collaborative is being recognized nationwide based on their policies and how they're supporting states to go online when in remote learning. They really said it's not about which product you use, but the consistency between the classes, especially at high school. So this whole week we've been setting down, as Sean said earlier, really clear expectations down to the colors in the background that teachers have to use. So if you're a parent and you have two high schoolers, you look at blue, you see a blue in one of your kids' calendars or in the background of learning management, you know you're in a math class. So it's really about consistency and use, and it's about, one of the things we heard really loudly this spring was, in not the learning management, but the additional apps you use, make sure you cut those down so parents aren't seeing 3 or 4 different apps to take a quiz on. So we're cutting down to two quiz apps because one wouldn't do everything for every content area, but between 2 we could. So that's the piece that's there. And Google, and the other piece about Google is that, and it wasn't the reason for doing it, but it was that it's free. All the Google domain is free to education.
So just a follow-up question. Do you know which LMS various colleges around the country are, picking up more than others? And does Google Classroom prepare our students to transition into that?
So colleges use all different types. Kevin and I are in 2 different institutions. They use 2 different types of LMSs. It's the concepts. It's not the actual software to be that you need to be in. It's the concept of, I need to hand this in. I need to know where to go get my resources. It's actually more about how the instructor uses the LMS than the LMS itself. And this, Sean, I'm going to pivot it right to you on this next topic. It's really about the universal design that you make for the learning environment. And Sean and I have been talking about that. We actually did a part of that in our faculty meeting today, taking the concepts, and Sean and Andrea are much more adept at this than I am, so I need to give it back to them. But that the universal design that you give so all kids can access all resources and how you set up your learning environment is more important than the software.
Yeah, when you think about universal design and a product like Canvas, which we had at BFA for a while, which also was a product that I taught on. Even as a teacher in Canvas, I found it really bulky and hard to use during my doctorate. So, one of the things about that was that the teachers at my college and me, I didn't know anything about it at the time, were not using universal design. So what that basically means is you are going to try to take all the barriers out of the software products or out of anything that you're using. So if you are going to put a link to an assignment somewhere, you want it to be right where the assignment description is. You don't want kids to have to go to a different page or a different section of the LMS to find it. You put it right where it needs to be, and that helps with navigating all these different systems. Because you get into something like Canvas and there are something like 50 different places you can end up by clicking the wrong button, and then you don't know where you've gone. With Google Classroom, at least, it's a little bit easier to set up and navigate because there really is sort of an assignment stream, and then there's this sort of social messagey stream that you can use for announcements and such. And if you customize the way that you use that, the way BFA is done and the way we're going to be doing, you end up taking a lot of the guesswork out of how to get to the work that you need to do. And that's the most important thing that we're trying to do. And when a kid gets to college, they're going to have Canvas. They're going to have some teacher that knows universal design and does it really well on Canvas. It's going to be just like using Google Classroom. They're going to have some other schmuck like me who didn't learn about universal design. They're going to go to Canvas and they're not going to know where to click for anything. And they're going to be calling their friends and trying to go into a chat room and figure it out. The good news is that, yeah, online learning is everywhere. The problem is that everybody uses it differently. So I think the tack that we're taking right now by choosing one LMS for certain grade levels and then making a way that everything is going to be set up and formatted is kind of a nice, sort of takes the technology out of the picture and makes it more about getting to the academics rather than fiddling with the technology. So I don't know if any of that helps with the question that you asked. You know, you said, is it going to get them ready for college? Frankly, I mean, I could start in kindergarten getting them ready for college, and that's why we have the Common Core standards, which, you know, have turned kindergarten into first grade. Don't know how much I love that for my poor kindergartners who need to play a whole lot more. But I think, you know, developmentally, they're ready in college to hit whatever LMS that they're going to be saddled with. And hopefully the colleges will pick up some universal design cues as well and make it a little bit easier to navigate.
And Sean, the only other thing I would add is our job is to teach the students on how to teach themselves to live in a software environment, not to teach them software, because the software that I used 3 years ago is not the software I use today. And that's, you know, that's just the way it is. And we have to teach kids to be self-directed learners and how to learn in a software environment.
Great point. Totally agree.
Okay, Kev.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question about this learning?
Yep.
So I'm curious the feedback from the parents, especially at the younger ages, about what worked well for them over the last 6 months and what didn't work out so well for them. Like what could be different so there'd be more success in their household. And I would imagine that it's different for everyone, but I'm wondering if that polling has taken place yet.
Well, remember, we had a survey that went out that you guys got the results on the last meeting or the one before that had that information. We got some really good, rich information from the parents on what worked and what didn't.
And Kevin, I think that was what really influenced the fact that we wanted consistency. The number one thing we heard from parents in our negative feedback was, you know, you guys are doing great and we understand how you pulled this off so quickly, but I have 3 kids and everyone looks different. How could they all look the same? How could I understand it better? So when you understand that now we're partnering with parents in a whole new way, where they're the front line to education, then that meant we had to think differently and we had to make everything consistent so that we could train them to be the front line to education when we're working in a remote mode. So a lot of what we've done was totally influenced by the input we got from that survey.
And I will totally admit that when we started online learning, I did not lift a finger to help my parents figure stuff out. My teachers were, right? They were helping them on the spot, but that wasn't even in my brain at the time. It was get the kids, get the academics up and running, make sure that we're in contact with the kids. So, I mean, that completely, I don't know if any of the other schools did, but I didn't do any parent trainings. And we, like Joanna asked, that's something that we have to include this year. And that'll help, you know, that'll help a lot, I think.
Thank you.
I also wanted to just add that, you know, we had Unified Classroom at BFA. This is Sarah Katam. We had Unified Classroom at BFA, and it's been there for a couple years, and teachers have been implementing it, trying to get it to work. And even our most tech-savvy teachers, we're still having problems with Unified Classroom. But yet within a matter of a week, we were able to get our most tech-savvy teachers and our most, you know, the teachers that needed the most help with technology proficient on using Google Classroom. And now we have a lot of experts on Google Classroom, including, you know, like they said, being able to have the parents and the students all get on it very quickly with limited training. And it's able to do really all the things that we need it to do. And there's lots of plugins that are available because it is Google. There's a lot of developers that are, you know, developing apps that can connect to it. So the usability is the greatest feature of Google Classroom and the ease of use.
I had a quick question. And I've heard a lot of people say, parents ask questions about how to use it. I mean, again, I know this is really low on the task list, but is there potential of somebody creating some how-to videos? So if there's some FAQs that you say, hey, this is click here and this is how you do this. I mean, like I said, I know it takes somebody to do that, but I didn't know if that has been thought of or.
Nina, we've done that for our staff, and I think that's a really great idea. We can certainly, I mean, that's the easiest, because then a parent can go on the website and watch it and listen to it when they have time, and then kind of follow up with questions if they have them. But and you can do a screen share and show what you have to click on and what you have to do. So I mean, that's got to be part of our training and planning, so that parents get that information. Yeah, I agree.
And Nina, at the high school, we unveiled our template 2 days ago, or yesterday, actually, sorry, Tuesday, to the whole staff. And there's a mandatory section called orientation that already has embedded in it a video for students and a video for parents.
Then you're way ahead of me. But
so every course will have that embedded in it.
Perfect. Yeah, it just saves time.
And I just wanted to quickly chime in from the social emotional learning perspective with that. I am working with a lot of different staff in all of the buildings around video modeling, particularly for the younger students around hand washing protocols, new mask wearing guidelines and protocols that we're going to have to follow, how to stay 6 feet apart. So all of those social emotional pieces that are going to be new and foreign to a lot of students. I am working with the OTs, PTs, and a lot of school counselors and behavior specialists in the buildings on putting those together over the summer so we can share those with community partners and families.
Okay, so is this the last slide, Kevin?
This is the last slide, and it's kind of a summary of what we talked about. So you start on the left. We're presently working on forming they call them task teams. I've been calling them subcommittees. Those teams will be working over the summer. There'll be administrators and volunteers from our staff and from our faculty. We'll have this continuous back and forth between the work of the team, bringing it to the leadership team for feedback, and going back and forth on that, with the idea that we'll have a implementation in place by August 1st. That is our goal, which will give us a good portion of the month of August to make sure it's ready to go for our in-service, which is relatively early this year. I think it's the 3rd week in August. And I believe that's it.
And Kevin, once we're done with the district's plan, we're going to have to go back to our schools and create our school-specific implementations, because the district plan won't take into account the fact that full hallways, you might be able to do two-way traffic and maintain social distancing, but in Fairfield, they're too narrow, or, just differences about how we're going to have to implement things. So we're going to have to do the school level planning once we get the district plan up and running.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. I'd forgotten. But yes, there'll be building specific things. Stephanie?
Hi, sorry. I just noticed Joanna asked a question about plans for pre-K. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of some of the ideas that I have going forward. This year it looked like technology was a piece that, our little ones have limits on how long they can be in front of screens. And they also have limits on what they're sort of able to motorically use. So we'll be looking into what sorts of technology they need. And but they'll be using the Seesaw platform as well. And the feedback just anecdotally that I've had from parents has been that that's been a very successful and engaging platform for them.
I do know that in the guidance that came out of the today. It's interesting reading something that, is the first draft of whatever's going to come out, but they were talking about just little things in pre-K, like children getting dropped off. Like adults are not going to be allowed in the building if they don't work there. So parents are going to have to drop their kids off outside the building. But with pre-K, they may actually be able to walk them to the door. And if it's a kid who's having a particularly difficult time disengaging from the parent, then they may be able to walk into the classroom and release the child. And that's sort of the only adaptation to that rule. So there's a lot of little information just starting to trickle about this back to school stuff that I just was lucky enough to have about 40 minutes to read it right before this meeting.
And I saw some questions around resources and space and whatever. That's part of the work of the subcommittees to figure that out. And will we have enough? What will the logistics be?
It'll depend on what the guidance tells us too.
I'm sorry, Jeff?
It'll depend on that guidance that came out today too, what they're saying, the requirement.
And later in the week too. Yes.
And what stage we open in. There are like 3 stages where 1 is shut down, 2 is kind of extensive social distancing, 3 is some social distancing, and then there's like back to normal. And so they think we're going to be in level 2, but it might be level 3. It just sort of depends. We don't know yet.
And can I just add that, it's great that we're going to have these guidelines and make these plans, but talking about being able to pivot and move quickly, everything is changing so fast. And what's being released today could be very different in August. So I think that we just need to be aware and ready and flexible in helping to model that as a community and as leaders in the district, and to understand that there's going to be some frustration, there's going to be a lot of emotional conversations, and this is not going to be easy.
We agree. Thank you, Alicia.
And I think, to add another layer to that is the whole, I think, it's hard to say what's going to happen, but I think from a parent perspective, the sooner we know, the easier it's going to be from the standpoint of, I guess I'm just so thankful we no longer have kids in the school system from the standpoint of, at least I know I can go to work, and so I think about the parents that are primary breadwinners who might not be able to go to work if they have to stay home and help school their children. So there's so much anxiety out there. I think that the more clear we can be, the sooner the better. And I know that it's really early to be saying any of that, but I just think it's the reality for parents.
Okay. Is that it for that item, Kevin?
Yes, Jeff.
So I can move on?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And luckily you had all those other people to help you out too.
Oh, luckily. We need them all.
Okay, on to item 6B, construction update about BFA in Fairfield. Mr. Kimball.
Thank you, Jeff. I'll do a quick overview on both, and I'll be glad to take any questions. It's not that I'm not trying to give information. I'm just not sure where everyone's at. With the COVID situation that we're in, it really put a delay on both projects. So I'm going to start with BFA, and some of it will be the same, and I'll let you know when it's the same, but both projects were on about a 6-week delay. With BFA, as of this morning, they started pouring the foundation for the connector, which is really exciting. At noon, a concrete pump truck showed up and started putting concrete in the forms for the footings. What has taken a long time, and we knew it would, is Ferris Street, which basically every utility that went down Ferris Street, not just stormwater, sewer, and potable water, but also power, internet. So there was fiber optic cables and a few not known water extensions left from the old houses in between the 2 buildings had to be reconfigured. So it was quite a complex situation, and it's probably about 1/3 of the project was right there. So we now have new power into the north building, which comes in under the old hospital. It used to come in, if you remember, between the 2 buildings, there was a big green box outside the cross walkway. on the north building, and actually it's called the three-phase power that's on the telephone poles went under the building over to the other side. So all that's been cleaned up, and we're getting out the transformers that are within the buildings, both south building and north building, and that's going to make us a lot safer for our power piece. The other piece that's happening is if you've been around BFA at all in the past week or two, you'll see that they've demolitioned around the bus turnaround where the kid drop off is, and they started to demo our connection into Ferris Street itself. The plan is to, as originally bid, was to, as you know, was to put the connector in, have some fire alarm upgrades in the north building, and do some outside work on the old hospital where needed. But as you all aware of, we had a much lower bid than what we have for the bond, so we're able to tackle some many more needed improvements on the north, on the old hospital wing. And I think everyone in the community will love the way it's going to look at the end. We're going to have a very nice unified color, and we're replacing we were only going to replace some of the clapboards, but now they're all getting replaced with cement board clapboards. Actually some of the trim around some of the windows that we were going to be judicious about it, but anything that's rotten now has been replaced, and they've put paint material on it that stops the rot from spreading, even though they took it back to clean wood. So the other things we're looking at is cleaning up some of the fire alarm system in the south building, and also more work in the parking lots to take care of our icing situation, especially over by the tech center. I lovingly this winter called it in a hockey rink because we had a dip in the back that gave us a big frozen sheet of ice that was kind of dangerous. So we're going to be able to take care of that as well. We're still looking at a few other things that might happen, but we want to see where the pricing comes for doing some of the parking lot work and the additional fire alarm system in the south building. The other piece of good news is because of COVID, if you remember, it was 3 years to do the sprinkler system, 3 summers, and we're down to 2. They've already finished the first phase of the sprinkler, and they're working on the second phase right now, and if they can get any jump into the third phase, they will. And we've had a great partnership with everyone involved in that project. So let me pause for a minute. I gave you a lot in a short bit of time there to see if there's any questions about the BFA project.
I don't see any.
When are they looking at completion?
Thank you, Al. I totally forgot to say that, and I meant to getting into this. Our safe date is October 31st. We're hoping it'll be sooner, but that 6 weeks put more than 6 weeks into the schedule, because what happened is some of the subs were, they stagger their schedule for when they can do work, and now we've changed their schedule, and some of them have work at other jobs. So it's about an 8-week delay, because we were trying to get it all done. The occupancy, get our certificate of occupancy for the connector as school started, and then finishing up through September. But we probably won't get that. I'm being told by the team, Bill, keep saying October 31st. We're hoping sooner.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to Fairfield.
So Fairfield's in, as I said, the same 6-week delay. Things are going well. If you've been around the Fairfield Center School at all or take a drive, you'll see there's actually foundation. Sean, I think they did the last pour today, was it? You were there today.
Yeah, they were definitely pouring today. I don't know if it was the last bit, but they were working on it today.
Well, that's what they told me the other day. That's what Doug told me, that today, this next pour would be the last pour, and they'd have all the foundation in for the art and music edition along. And about a week and a half ago, they finished the storage area off the gym. So they're in really good shape there. They're doing a good job with the parking lots. They've moved on to moving that around. Our new septic tank is in, which is now down at the bottom of the foot of the hill, right where the walkway is. We've got to do some repair there. About the same time, middle of October to end of October, we don't have a solid date on this project of when we're going to be able to occupy those additions, but it's going to be somewhere in that realm. Things are going really well. The the fire alarm system, they're way ahead of schedule. So that's almost done, right, Sean? They're supposed to be done July 1st or something like that.
They should be out July 1st.
Yeah. And then they're doing some work in the building on the electrical systems, and they're also doing some work on a couple fire doors that we had to put in a couple places. That's really we should be dried in by the start of school, but it won't be finished until mid-October for all the additions. Any questions on Fairfield?
Doesn't look like it. So will you still be using, Sean, the old building? I can't remember what it's called for the start of school.
So interestingly, in the guidance that we got today, it did suggest that people not move between different buildings. And it also suggested not doing chorus or any instruments where you blow, like woodwinds or anything like that. So I have a feeling that music and art are going to be on carts for a couple of months in the main building rather than making the children go down there.
Okay.
Just seems to make the most sense, but I haven't made a firm decision on that. I'm going to wait and see what the guidance directs us to later in the summer.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
Let's move on to item 7A, food service contract, and Martha.
So this year was the year that we needed to put our food service contract out to bid. And the process is that I needed to take the RFP, that is the state mandated template, which is what is attached to your agenda, the 97-page document. That was advertised and sent to 10 vendors that the state child nutrition program has vetted. That was sent out back in April. We had, it was an announcement that RFP was available. If anybody was interested, to please contact me to receive the documents. We received 3 vendors that requested the RFP documents. Out of those 3, we had 2 that were active as far as asking questions and requesting additional information and documents. We had 1 vendor request a walkthrough through our buildings. And a week before the bids were actually due, 1 vendor sent a letter stating that they were not going to bid on our project this time around. And the other contractor that hadn't been active, we didn't receive anything from. So we received one bid from Underwood Catering, the Abbey Group. And this is a new contract compared to the previous type of contracts. The previous ones were a reimbursement type of contract. This one is a price per meal contract, which is completely different in the processing part, my end of the work. And it's going to be new to me, but we all have to learn things new all the time. The contract came in. I've had the Agency of Education Child Nutrition Program procurement specialist review everything as process. I can't bring anything to the school board until it's been reviewed and okayed by them. And so at this point, I'm going to be looking for the school board to make a motion to accept the bid from the Underwood Catering Group, the Abbey Group, doing business as Underwood Catering, for the contract for the FY21 school year.
Can I get that motion? Thank you, Al. Can I get a second?
Second.
Steve, thank you. Okay, any discussion, any questions for Martha? So this is the same company that we use now.
Correct.
And was it a 1-year contract that could be extended 4 times?
Correct. It's a 1-year contract that we can annually renew.
Okay. Anybody have any Yes, Grant.
Being structured differently, do you have a sense for how the costs may compare?
It's going to be interesting. We have been fortunate to, over the past as many years as I've been doing this work, we have pretty much every year finished the year with a either a break-even point, or the program has generated some additional income. That was based on the contract where it was a reimbursement with the food service management company taking the hit if our program was at a loss. The loss came off of their management fees. This one is slightly different. I have heard across the state, this is a program that the state mandated, I think 2 years ago, that everybody switched to this type of program. And some have shown where they have actually lost money with this type of program compared to the reimbursement style. And others have said that they've broken even and made money. So it will be up to myself and to work closely with the food service management company to make sure that we're getting what we put out for bid and what they have agreed to do. And I will know better a year from now whether or not it's sustainable for us or not. I don't know. I am anticipating that we will make out okay because of the numbers of our free and reduced population. And that's a large factor on whether or not programs are successful or not.
Thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions for Martha before we vote? Okay. All those in favor of awarding the food service contract bid to the Abbey Group, Underwood Catering, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it, 9-0. Thank you. Now on to 7B, set breakfast lunch prices.
So that's me again. So this time of year is when I come to the school board and indicate that we need to look at the prices that we're charging the students that actually have to pay for their meals. And the federal government, because this is a federally subsidized program, has a process that they require us to follow. And it's used to make sure we're not setting our meal prices too low so that our students that we're getting reimbursed from the federal and state government to provide their meals, that they're not subsidizing the meals for the students that have to pay for their meals. And in doing the process, I had come up with the scenario, which is, I believe, the first page of your attachment, which was going to be my recommendation that we would need to increase the prices at Fairfield and St. Albans Town School, trying to work towards getting the prices consistent across the district, which meant a 5-cent increase for Fairfield and a 10-cent increase for St. Albans Town School. As a reminder, last year we increased the St. Albans Town School prices by 25 cents, which was a significant increase. And so that was going to be my proposal. But with the whole COVID-19 issue, there was a supplemental piece of information that came out that said, if I could show that the district was in a positive balance as of December 31st, we could be granted a waiver and not have to increase our prices for next year. And because of the situation where families are going to be in for next year, I thought it prudent that we look at that. And I was able to show that as of December 31st, our program was showing a positive balance of about $7,000. And so I requested the waiver of not having to increase the prices for next year, and that was granted. So in fact, agenda item is going to be one that you're not going to have to act upon, because I'm not going to ask that the prices be increased. If anything, we just can have a motion stating that the prices will stay the same as FY20.
Good. I'm glad that's the case. Historically, too, we've always raised the prices, the minimum amount that we had to, that the government said,
yes,
to move towards that correct price. So
correct.
this
Yes.
is even more minimum.
Yes.
Question, Martha.
Go ahead, Al.
Are we going to be in a position next year to have to raise that more?
The federal requirement is that you have to keep working towards setting the price to fall within the target rate that the feds are requiring, but it's set that they only require that you increase a price by no more than 10 cents a year. They have that cap. You can say, we're going up to the cap. You can increase it larger amounts based on where your prices are. And because we are a single school district and we have different prices in the different buildings, we use a weighted rate process. And so that's why last year we had to actually go up higher than that. But we can go the minimum, which is the 10 cents.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think what I'd look for is a motion to hold the breakfast and lunch prices for FY21 at their current
So
rate.
move.
Thank you, Al.
Second that.
Second.
Thank you, Jack. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it, 9-0.
Thank you.
Okay, item 7C is we have a bid award for Chromebooks at SATEC.
So I can start that conversation.
Okay.
So, and Jason will jump in here shortly. We have a program at the St. Albans Town School where we do procure Chromebooks on a rotating basis. And so this is the next round that needs to be replaced. And we've gotten 3 bids. And I will let Jason speak to the recommendation that for the contract that they want to go with.
I can speak to that, Martha.
Okay, sorry.
And Jason can jump in if he wants to add. I appreciate it. So we do have the 3 bids that are attached, and we do have a recommendation to go with the CDWG. That bid is not the lowest. The company who gave us the lowest bid, which is just a couple $1,000s lower, they can guarantee delivery by October. And that's going to pose a lot of problems for us to start the school year, especially since our objective is to plan for in-person learning. And we have the need to replace these devices. Many of them that are being replaced are beyond their useful usage. They're 5 years or older. And so we really need these delivered to us in the summer so that we can prepare them and have them ready for the students. So that is our reasoning behind that. And it isn't, much higher, but it's the timing of it is really critical for us, especially knowing that our goals are to get the kids in the building and we need to get the equipment in their hands right off.
Could I get a motion to award the SATEC Chromebook bid to CDWG in the amount of $69,000, and then we can discuss.
So move.
Thank you, Al. Second?
I'll second.
Nina, thank you. Did anybody have any questions? I know Jason gave me a good description of the process. If you guys want to know about that, how they replace their Chromebooks. I heard somebody say they had a question.
Yeah, I do.
Al.
Now I remember not too long ago, we approved a budget request for the city, and they were going to get the Chromebooks at a certain price and a time. How sure are you that you're going to be able to get these in July?
As sure as we can get the order placed and have them tell us that the items are in stock. I mean, it's like anything. This is a bid. They say they have the items on stock. And again, this is a hot commodity. Everybody doing remote learning. So we are striving to get this out as quickly as possible. And hopefully we will be able to get the items at that price. Otherwise, we will have to bring it back out to bid again.
And just for context, Al, IT did call each vendor at the end of last week to confirm what they were anticipating. And this vendor did say, right now we're shipping within a month of the order being placed. And the sooner you get it to us, we will ship in July. So that was up-to-date information as of the end of last week.
Let's hope that's the case. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I got it. Would it be possible for us to authorize a higher amount in the event that it had to go out to bid to avoid coming back to the school board to do it faster?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
It'll have to be separate.
Okay, are we ready to vote? All those in favor of awarding the Chromebook bid to CDWG in the amount of $69,000, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, everybody. On to item 8A, warrants. I'd look for a motion to approve the warrants, acknowledging that passage of this motion will act as individual board member authorization of their signature on these warrants.
So moved.
Thank you, Al.
Second.
Thank you, Jack. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 9-0. Thank you. Superintendent's report.
Only one other thing. I think I mentioned earlier that I sent a letter out to all staff today, MRUSD staff, thanking them and congratulating them on what they were able to do over the last 3 months, which I've stated over and over is pretty much miraculous. Systems are not able to turn on a dime, and while we didn't turn on a dime, I could say we turned on a quarter. They made the changes necessary for our students and really worked hard. And while they did that, they did so many out of the box, cool, interesting things for our students and our community throughout the whole time to beef things up, to keep them motivated. I need to also today thank you, the board, for your work on this and your support. When this all started, questions were asked of how can we support you? And I stated some of it is just moral support and listening to us and helping us through some of this, and you did, and we appreciated it. And although we're not done yet, I mentioned in the letter that we did an amazing job winning a battle. We haven't won the war yet. We are moving in that direction, and with your help, we'll make it through the rest of the way. So thank you.
Definitely. Thanks to everybody. Item 8C, board announcements. Anybody have anything?
I have.
Can I just?
Sorry.
Alicia.
You want to go, Sue? You can, or do you want me to go first?
No, you can go.
I just want to thank Joan and Stacy and everybody at St. Albans City School. I didn't expect that the Fancy Dance Bus Parade was going to be as much of a hit with our family and the community as it was. I was at a meeting in Taylor Park with some people from work, and Chip was down on Messenger Street with Teddy, and both of us had a misty moment in that reflection of the kids being able to interact and do that. And when I was in Taylor Park, I got to see all of these families connecting and interacting, and they miss you guys and love you guys, and just thank you.
Sue?
So I was just going to say, now that things are starting to open up again, I think it's, and I think I alluded to this before, it's still really uncertain for so many people. You know, the hospital is still looking at cutting costs, and my assumption is staff. That my work as an occupational therapist and also as a ED screener, I hear so much uncertainty in terms of, you know, finances and if people are still going to have jobs come the end of summer. So I think that's, as things are starting to open up and maybe starting to feel a little more normal, it's going to be important for us to recognize that there's still so much uncertainty out there, and take that into account when we're not only talking with the community, but planning for the next steps.
And Joanna?
I just wanted to thank Kevin and the leadership team also for their very thoughtful letter around cultural responsiveness, and would love to, you know, make a quick plug about to Alexis that when we're doing our social emotional learning for the fall, that we're also including that work and what it might look like for students to feel safe and comfortable at school. So thanks you. I thought the letter was fantastic.
Thank you.
I know from someone who's sort of sitting up here in one room when all the activities have been going around with the students graduating and doing things virtually. I do want to commend whoever did the editing on the graduation. Very well done. As far as I was concerned, I was sitting in Collins Pearly watching the graduation, so it was very well done.
Yeah, that was Alan Steele, I believe. But there was a lot of people that could make all that happen. It was
Yeah,
really good.
he did an excellent job. And I saw Kevin and Bill, well, no, Kevin and Jeff shaking hands with a lot of students.
No, they weren't. It's actually, its official name is Fake Shake.
Yeah. But it was very well done.
Can I ask a question to Bill? So after the BFA graduation, did you get feedback from the parents? Because I know, you know, some people were, you know, hurt because of the, you know, number that was, you know, limited. Did you receive any feedback afterwards? I mean, everybody did a great job. I was just curious.
We had really positive feedback all around. We actually had people asking us to change our traditional graduations closer to this. So that'll be interesting in the future. You know, everyone was really well, abided really well by our guideline of 4 people. There were a few families that brought more than 4. There's some grandparents peering in through doors at the tennis courts. So.
And they met your pictures too, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and if you've been watching Facebook, especially the BFA senior parents page, there's a great a group of senior girls on Saturday right after ran up with their caps and gowns and stood on top of the hill. Thanks, Tim, for painting that. I don't know if you've seen the picture. It's great of the grass painting of the girls taking a leap in the air. They all somehow got in the air at the same time. It's about 20 of them, and their hats flying. So it was a really nice tribute. And but all in all, only one. I mean, I haven't heard anything negative really at all.
No, that's really cool, Nina, too, because the family got to walk with the student. So they came right up to the stage basically, and you know, had the best seats in the house for that part where the student walked across. They took all the time that they needed to take pictures, and
I like the personalization of it. I thought it was awesome. And like Bill, you just said, maybe that will change the future. I'd really like it.
So then they took some pictures. They walked out of the tennis courts and were cheered by teachers that were waiting out there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Mike Campbell led that crew down there, so he was doing a great job.
Good job, Mike. No, that's great.
And Campbell was the loudest too.
Always has been.
Kudos to you too, Tim.
No, I take no credit for the painting. That's our ace painter, Ryan Huseline, who usually does fields, but he did that, and he did the huge heart on the football field. So you see Ryan, thank him for that. The kids
No, all
love it.
graduations were I saw, SATEC and Fairfield. Unfortunately, I haven't seen City, but I'm assuming it's probably just as good, like everybody else. So thank you again, everybody. It means a lot because it's a certain time, we've all heard it's certain people in your life that you're supposed to, a milestone, but yet this is another milestone that nobody else probably are hoping nobody else will have to experience. So thank you.
Okay, item 9, agenda items for the next meeting, which is our 1 July meeting, which is July 15th. And I know that Kevin would like to do an SRO presentation, so we'll have that on there. Right, Kevin?
Yeah.
Okay, we do not need an executive session, and seeing as how we're at the end of our agenda, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.